latest round of UN negotiations in a treaty to control plastic production is underway in Canada. Campaigners say plastic is choking our planet, and they're calling for a worldwide ban on all single-use items such as straws, cups, bottles and bags. But the petrochemical industry and oil and gas exporters are pushing back. Our environment editor Nick Clark explains.
Yes, plastic is everywhere, from the clothes we wear to how our food is packaged, and even the microplastics found in the deepest parts of our oceans. The UN says 400 million tonnes of plastic waste is produced every year. Of that, less than 10% is recycled. And 14 million tonnes ends up in the world's waterways, year after year after year. Then there's the health impacts for every living thing, including us.
When you think about it, every single day we're in contact with plastic in sort of every single setting in our daily lives. So, we're wearing plastic, we're breathing plastic, we're eating plastic. What the latest research is showing is that there's plastic in breast milk, there's plastic in placentas. So it's become this completely inescapable toxic problem that's impacting every single person, even if you have the best intentions to avoid using plastics and you're someone who chooses the lifestyle where you try to avoid it. It's simply not possible to avoid the health impacts of plastics at this stage.
The sheer scale of single-use plastics is mind-boggling. Take drinks containers alone. In 2022, it's estimated the world used 1.5 trillion single-use plastic bottles and cups. Think of it, 1.5 trillion in 1 year, used once and just chucked away. But remember, not all plastic is bad. Here's the UN's Inga Anderson.
We all understand, by the way, that we need plastic. We need it in lighter vehicles, faster trains that are lighter, in windmills, in shipping. So this is not a sort of anti-plastic treaty, but it is very much an anti-plastic in the environment treaty. And we need to understand that most of that which ends up in the environment is single-use and short-lived.
So now there's a big push at the talks to radically and definitively cut back on the amount of plastic produced in the first place.
Bans on single-use plastics for many different kinds of single-use plastics would be one of the key things that the treaty can do. Promoting a transition to reuse, repair and refill, essentially trying to transition us to a kind of safer, more circular economy would be an ultimate goal of the treaty. And that's really at the core of how the treaty is being designed at the moment.
But not everybody agrees. Plastics are made from petrochemicals, and oil and gas exporters attending the talks say we should focus more on recycling and eliminating waste than curbing production. It looks set to be a bruising week of negotiations in the effort to clean up plastic pollution before we head to the final round of talks in November.
Dana Miller is the Director of Strategic Initiatives at Oceanum. It's the largest international advocacy organisation dedicated solely to ocean conservation. She's joining us live from Dublin. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. Nick was just telling us there, 14 million tonnes of plastics making its way into the world's waterways every single year. Now, we're talking about the UN negotiations that are going on, but how do you fix the stuff that's already in our water?
Well, that's a big problem. I mean, plastic is killing our oceans. It's killing our planet. It's obviously already in our oceans, but we think it's very important not to focus on the cleanup effort. We need to focus on stopping the production. We need to focus on stopping the plastic from getting into our oceans in the first place. And that's really important in the treaty negotiations in particular. That we're focusing on upstream solutions, like reducing plastic production in the first place and switching to reuse systems, rather than focusing so much on collecting plastic from the ocean and recycling. If you were to think about a tub overflowing with water, you wouldn't first go and grab the mop. You would want to turn off the tap first. So the mop is recycling. That's cleanup efforts. We need to focus on turning off the tap. We need to focus on plastic reduction and switching to other packaging systems like reusable packaging instead of single use.
The numbers are astonishing when it comes to this. As Nick was mentioning, 1.5 trillion single-use items used and thrown away on an annual basis. But one would imagine a lot of influence on whether or not this changes is going to come from the public. Is there any evidence that there is a change in public attitude and public demand for particularly single-use plastic items?
I think there's a fear emerging from the public. I mean, you've seen the headlines that I've seen, that we've all seen, about the potential health impacts that plastic can have. So I think that there is a growing concern over that, obviously, in addition to the concern over our environment. And I do believe it's just a matter of time before the public starts turning against single-use plastic and looking for alternatives. And our aim as an environmental nonprofit is to see that transition happen faster, because the damage has already been done, and it's only we need to move quicker so that we don't have more plastic in our ocean, that it becomes more and more difficult to remove.
This is not a problem that is new. This has been known about for many years, and it's been brought up at so many environmental conferences and debates, and of course at the UN as well, over many years. As somebody who is very focused on the impact of plastics, particularly in the waters of the world, do you and your colleagues get frustrated at the slow pace of change that we're seeing?
Yes. That is probably the biggest frustration. We're very hopeful about the future. I think we have to move away from plastic. This is going to happen. We do see solutions that we can move towards. And it's just, as I said, it's a matter of timing. We need to move quicker with this so that we don't leave more devastation in our oceans and other environments from the plastic waste that we leave behind. And an example of a solution is I've mentioned it a few times now, reusable packaging. In the beverage sector in particular, this is something that already exists at scale. For example, in the Philippines, nearly 50% of all Coca-Cola sells is in refillable glass bottles. So we want to see a shift to these reusable packaging systems in more countries, and we want to see them scaled up in the countries that they already exist. And we want to see these systems replace single-use plastic, and we're hopeful about that. But yes, indeed, it's all about time. We need to move quicker with this, because it really is a crisis.
Dale Miller, it's been really interesting getting your thoughts on this, and we appreciate it. Dale Miller, Director of Strategic Initiatives at Oceana. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.